Hey YouTube, today we're going to be looking at a couple long guns, and we're going to be talking about the 223/556 cartridge. And before we get started, I'm going to let you know that every single one of these weapons are not loaded. Every one of the bolts are open, and as I pick them up, I will show you that we are clear to make this video. So the reason I decided to do long guns is it's harder for me to do them inside, and I need to get outside the house. I haven't left my home in probably 2 weeks, and we're trying to whoop this little illness that I have here. So this is forcing me to be on the outdoors here. So what we're going to talk about today is the 223/556 cartridge and why it exists and what are the differences in it. So what I have right here is I have just a regular 556 cartridge. This is a quote unquote green tip penetrator. Now what does that mean, folks? It means probably at 100 yards it will go like a few millimeters in the steel. That's what it means. So folks, if you have soft body armor on, all these 556 or 223s are going to go through them at short distances. They're 3,000 feet per second. It's a small bullet moving real fast. They're all going to go through like a soft body armor thing, but none of those are going through a tank or anything like that. So all these gun ranges that don't want you to have these little green tips on the bullet, they're all full of crap. I don't even think half of them even know what it is, and I think half the ammunition companies just color them green for the cool factor. But what is the difference in a 556 and a 223? Well, if you look at the cases, they're identical. There's absolutely no difference. So in a 556 and a 223 casings, there's no such thing as quote unquote just 223 casings or just quote unquote 556 casings. They're exactly the same in every measurable way. There's no difference. Nobody's going to tell you any differently, folks. Now, the bottoms of them will be stamped like 223 on like a box of 223 ammunition. If it's factory Winchester ammunition or factory Remington ammunition, it'll say what it was intended to be chambered. And the same goes for the 556. I don't even know if this one even says it. I believe it may. But this is definitely a 556 round on here. So the only reason they stamp it is they're advertising what kind of ammunition they're loading, because it's an ammo company and they have to do that. But the casing, there is no difference. The bullets, there's not a lot of difference there either, folks. They have multiple grain, multiple weight bullets in 223 Remington and 556 Nato. Now the differences starts getting into the charge of the cartridge and how much powder is put in them. So the 223 Remington came out in the 1960s, and I can't remember exactly what year it was, folks, and I've told you this many times before, I'm not a historian, but it came out in the 1960s, and it was meant to not replace, but mainly get a shorter to medium range carbine rifle for the soldiers to use that had more capacity and weighed a lot less. So Eugene Stoner came out with the actual AR-15, and these little things here were born, folks, and these are the ones that everybody thinks are evil, and I'll show you this thing's not loaded. So this is a Colt. This is an older Colt AR-15, and if you look at it real close, I'm going to show you here if I can get it to focus. It says caliber 2230. Now this one was made during the assault weapons ban, and the lower on an AR is completely separate from the upper. The upper is where all the action happens, folks. This is where your chamber is, this is where your barrel is, this is where everything happens. The lower, it really doesn't matter. But this is a factory-built rifle, and it actually says caliber 223 on it. Now, if we get a little bit closer, if we look here, let me see if I can get to find it. If you look at the barrel markings here, I don't know if this will show up out here in this lighting or not, but it says 556 NATO 17 twist on the barrel. And this is the actual barrel that came with this rifle. This is a factory-built rifle. So which is it, folks? Is it a 223 or is it a 556? Well, folks, it'll shoot either one of them. It'll shoot either one of them. The difference in the 223 and the 556 is a little bit of pressure. But what a lot of people don't understand is in today's times, these rifles are tested at higher pressures than the cartridge is really capable of doing, to make sure that these rifles will not fail when they get issued to like soldiers and stuff. And this is an actual Colt rifle. It is identical in build and everything to what the soldiers would have gotten. So that rifle, that old rifle there, will shoot 5.56 or 223 through it. Now the general rule of thumb is if it says 223 on it, you're not supposed to shoot 5.56 out of it. If it says 5.56 on it, you can shoot anything out of it. That's the general rule of thumb, and I think that's mainly an attorney thing and a lawsuit thing. And I'm just telling you, I've been around firearms a very long time, folks. I'm going to pick up the next one here, and this is a more modern one. And I'll show you, we'll flip it over and show you there's nothing in this one. The breech is open. This is a Daniel Defense. This is also a military grade rifle. And if you look right here on it, it says caliber. Let me see if I can get it to focus. It says multi. So they don't even tell you what it is on this. But if you look at the upper, it clearly says 5.56. And let's see if we can see on this barrel where it is stands. I don't think you can see it on this one with this quad rail on them. But this is a 5.56 upper. So which one will this one shoot, folks? It will absolutely shoot both of them. It doesn't matter which one you stick in it. And that's a lot more modern rifle, this Daniel Defense is. And this old Colt right here on this government carbine on the right, that Daniel Defense is a lot more modern rifle. And it, to avoid confusion, they write on the lower receiver multi-caliber. And like I said, all four of these rifles on here, none of these are home built. These are all factory built rifles, and I'm just going to show you some of the terminology they put on them. So we're going to move over to these two on the left, and this is a Ruger Mini 14, folks. And this one may be hard to show up on the camera, so I brought two of them out here. But the reason I brought this one out here, if you look real close, and I don't know if this blue one's going to show up a lot, but it says Ruger Mini 14 caliber 223. Now, folks, this gun was made in 1976. This is a first-year production Mini 14, and it says on it that it's chambered in 223. Well, the reason that is in 1976, the actual 5.56 Nato cartridge didn't exist. They didn't have them being widely distributed. All they had was 223. And they built these rifles and they wrote 223 Remington right there on them. Now, later on down the road, around 1980, when Nato decided that they were going to make it universal across the board with the 9mm for the handguns, the 5.56 with the intermediate rifles, and the 7.62 by 51, which is a 308, and the larger range rifles. All the companies started stamping them 7.62 or 5.56 or 9mm Luger or whatever they had. Now this one here was a couple years later, and you'll probably be able to see this. This is made in 1985. So if you look right on here, look real close, it still says caliber 223. Now I have a theory on this. This gun was a Ruger Mini 14, and during like all the assault weapons talks and all that, the two guns on the left get a lot less slack than the ones on the right. People do not like these black rifles, these AR-15s. They can't stand them. They think they should be banned or evil and all this stuff. But this Ruger's Mini 14s have always gotten a pass, because if you look at them in their stock configuration, both of these are stock, that is a factory folder, but if you look at them in their stock configuration, it looks more like a hunting rifle. But make no doubt about it, folks, it does the same thing as one of these AR-15s does. It's a semi-automatic 223, and yes, I'm going to say it, /5.56 caliber rifle that's semi-automatic, and it has a removable box magazine on it. Now, my theory is Ruger was run by a gentleman named Bill Ruger, who I'm not a real big fan of. He's not your friend, folks. Well, he's not anybody's friend now because he's no longer alive, but He's not your friend. He's not a firearms guy. He owned the firearms company and started it. And what he did is he got very lucky with his design, and Ruger started to form because of a 22 pistol. Well, in order to make money, which is all anybody cares about in this world today, they decided to step into the rifle game, and they developed this Ruger Mini 14. Bill Ruger never wanted an assault type rifle to be in the hands of the general public, and he proved that by writing a note to Congress back before the assault weapons ban came out, and he said, instead of banning assault weapons, why don't you just ban magazines over 10 rounds? And he never thought you should have more than a 10 round magazine in a assault weapon or in any type of rifle, or maybe it was 20 rounds, I'm not sure. This one has an original 20 round Ruger magazine in it, as you can see, and as far as my knowledge goes, the whole time Bill Ruger was alive, they never produced a magazine over about 20 rounds for any of their rifles. And now they have these long, this one happens to be a stainless one. That's a 40 round magazine. And this one was made in the 80s, long after Bill Ruger was gone. And this is not a Ruger magazine, by the way, folks. I don't know if you can buy, I know you couldn't while he was alive, but I don't know if you can buy 40 round Ruger actual factory magazines or not, but I know you can get 30 round ones now. So the reason they put the 223 on the Ruger receivers is, in my opinion, is it's a lot less evil. It got a lot less attention grabbed to them, because as much of a anti-firearm person Bill Ruger was, he does like money, and he did like to make money, and what he did is he made something that was more appealing to the government. So he writes this letter, he writes 223 on him, and it doesn't see that it's a fighting rifle. And if you look at this wood handle one, that really doesn't look as intimidating as this Daniel Defense. It has all the stuff all over it. But keep in mind, they do the same thing, shoot the same cartridge and all that. So with that being said, this one was made in 1976. You can shoot 5.56 out of it. And Ruger got a phone call or email every single day when that 5.56 NATO round came out, and asking, can you shoot, is it safe to shoot 5.56 out of them? It absolutely is, folks. There is one Ruger Mini 14 that was made just for target that they say you're not supposed to shoot 5.56 out of them. I think it's called the Ruger Mini 14 Target, but all the rest of it, doesn't matter what it says on the receiver, you can shoot 5.56 out of them, folks. So basically, you just need to be weary about it. If it says 223 on it, just do your little homework or anything like that. If it says 5.56, you can shoot anything out of them. But basically, there's not much difference in either one of them. And more than likely, and I'm not an expert on them, you could probably shoot either one of them on either one of the rifles, and you're never going to have a problem being the general public. Now, if you're out there running thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds through things and they're full automatic, you're probably going to start running into problems anyway. Especially with these ARs, there comes a time where they're going to break down, and this one here is probably about the top-notch one that you can get, and eventually it is going to burn out, running full auto on it, thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds through them. But it probably doesn't have anything to do with the pressure of the case or the cartridge, folks. Just be mindful of them. There is a slight difference in the charge of them, but it's not as big a difference as everybody thinks. Everybody makes a lot bigger deal than it really is. But these two older Mini 14s from the 80s and the 70s, the farthest one on the left, 5.56 didn't even exist. You can shoot it through that thing all day long. The Colt over here on the right was made, in the early 90s, somewhere around there, early to mid 90s, and it's clearly marked on the receiver 223, but if you look at the barrel, it says 5.56 NATO on it. So this one here just says multi. All of them say 223 except for this Daniel Defense here. It says multi, and it covers everything on that one. But if you look at the top of the receiver right here, it clearly says 5.56 on it. So basically, the only difference in a 5.56 and a 223 is a little bit of powder charge in the 5.56. There's virtually no performance difference whatsoever, folks. For what you use these for, for what people use them for, killing paper targets at 100, 200, 300 yards. You're not going to tell any difference on them. You're not going to tell much penetration difference in body armor, because any of them will go through soft body armor at close quarters. And I don't think anybody's shooting out the 600 meters trying to go through any type of armor with the 223 or 5.56. Anyway, folks, that's my spill on the 223, 5.56. You know, the 223 Remington came out in the 60s, and 5.56, they changed all that over in the 1980s, early 1980s. I believe it was 1980. So if you have any questions on this, I'm not an expert on them, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that I feel that I can, or I'll find the answer for you. Thank you very much for watching my video today. You folks have a great day.